Well, welcome. We have a couple people, Carol, Audrey, Tracy online. That's amazing. So yeah, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Nicole. I am the Systems Director out at Northern Arizona Healthcare. I've been in that role just over a year or so. And just this presentation does have some significance. All of them is based on some experiences. And prior to that, I was in Guam and I was the radiology director there for 5 years. And boy, was I mixed up in politics quite a bit, especially from the cultural aspect. And as I talked to a bunch of different colleagues, recognizing that people don't realize that they're caught up in politics, how do you get your initiative pushed through? How do you get the people to make the decisions? How do you have an influence? How does cardiology not take over the funds and radiology still have, their say in it from an education standpoint? How do you make sure you get your changes when it comes to various initiatives? So that's a bit about my background, heavily involved in various industries, specifically HR, education, and of course, radiology. So I like to consider myself as an octopus, one hand in everything. I enjoy doing a bunch of different things. And so more specifically, supporting radiology, doing good things, trying to leave my little legacy in radiology. So especially with such a small group, let's just do a couple quick introductions. I know Elena, just tell the group who you are, what you do.
Well, Director of Clinical Development, Building Academy Medical School. We are the California-based medical education and imaging college.
Thank you, Elena. Nicole?
Dr. Nicole I'm also the learning associate for Base Campus and instructor. Also help to educate, as we affectionately call them, behind their back, baby doctors and being better doctors for radiologists, as well as have been a leadership in imaging and started being tech and running trial teams for 18, 19 years now.
That's awesome. Let's go ahead with you, sir.
My name is Eric Person. I am the manager of Biden Packaging in Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas, Missouri. And I've been in this industry for 17 years, but I'm excited to listen.
Awesome. Thanks. Tell me your name again. Eric. Okay.
Bob White, I'm Chief Operating Officer at Imaging. And we're a physician-based company with 10 radiologists and cover all kinds of facilities in the Pacific Northwest.
And Inland Imaging was one of those, Steve, who helped support my dissertation. So I am definitely indebted to him. Okay, well, lovely to have you, ma'am. What's your name? Nan. And what do you do? What role do you play in imaging? Okay, no worries. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I'm John. We would get computers, look at this what was getting. So you might ask me how we end up with these imaging.
Yes.
Because we acquired USOs 2 months ago. So I'm learning,
That's awesome. Well, welcome. Nice to have you, sir.
Regional Director for Management of Taxes, I'm the Imaging Director for all of our imaging services, and also National Director for College for Children.
My goodness, so you're like the octopus too. Oh my goodness, wow. That is awesome. And then Josh.
Josh Library. I go to Patient Imaging Centers in Central Florida. I'm born city in Smart Beach and live in Orlando. It keeps me busy, but then it's a consulting company where I do. If you call us, we'll do anything for radiology imaging or orthopedics, for software purchasing, modality purchasing.
Well, that's awesome. Well, thank you all for deciding to attend this. I know I was just letting somebody, it's so hard sometimes when we have to choose between other great lectures, right? And not having it recorded too. So yes, we all have different functions, but for the most part, you probably feel like me where you are. My thing isn't working again. Uh, no. So a lot of stuff. So my PhD is in organizational leadership. My SHRM, so I'm a senior certified professional for HR. I am the certification director for HR for the Pacific Council and for Guam. So while I was there, I had that opportunity to make waves in the HR industry, and I am in charge for the boot camp. So when it's time for the professionals, when they're trying to get their CP, certified professional or senior professional, they come through me to go through the boot camp. CPPS, Certified Professional Patient Safety. When I came into my role, there was a slew of patient events. It was culturally, past leadership. So I made the commitment, let me learn more about this. I never had that experience of so many preventable errors, and on the initiative of going to theoretical zero. So I decided, hey, let me go out and really learn all about this, and ended up getting the certification. And
that was certified.
paid,
patient safety?
yes. And it is administered by the IHI, what is it, International Health Institute, and GPHR, because I love culture, I like languages. Being in Guam, I thought my next assignment was going to be in Asia somewhere, so I went after the global HR certification there to help make me an expert in that area. And then, of course, PMP and managing multi-million-dollar contracts on a daily basis. So wanting to make sure that I do the right thing, because, you know, those are things that you can't get a project slipped up at all. And then, of course, radiology as the rest of them. So I got professional, project management, professional. Yeah. No. Yes. And especially when I teach and they issue certificates, there's definitely no way to put it. So just Nicole is fine. And I did get my imaging career through Army. So I was previous Army many moons ago, and that's where I got my start. So. But with all that said, and all of those fancy initials and my official title, this is what I think I do on a daily basis. I put out fires. My job is tremendously hectic, and it is on a daily basis putting out a ton of fires. And those fires too are relationship based, right? And this is where office politics come up. So as we get into this, when you hear office politics, what does that mean to you? What do you think, Josh? Oh, professionally babysitting. Policies? What else? Yes. Yes. Now, when you say personalities, tell me more there.
Dealing with aggressive personalities, strong personalities.
Yes, and when you have these people in your team or outside, you know, when you're dealing in large organizations, you got IT, you got finance, you got supply chain, and they have strong personalities. It really becomes now a power struggle. Indirectly, you may not be aware of it, but this is how you get your voice heard. Who is able to play the game more? So when you see office politics, it's really, at the end of the day, I have my department's agenda to push through. You're trying to get your new imaging center. You're trying to work with your referring physicians, your urgent care people, supply chain, all of these folks that you're trying to get them to buy in. And if you don't know who's the person to rub shoulders with, then you could find yourself that you're not having your agenda. So you had to build relationships, especially. How was that whole process for you? You've had your one imaging center, building into the next. Is it really about relationships?
It is, because I've learned how to do it. It's hard, and you have to learn to control what you can control, but also trust people to do the job you put them in. And I mean, for me, it's learning how to delegate.
Then, and how do you delegate? By understanding those relationships as well. But even to get started with your business, you having to have people buy into the idea, people who are going to refer to you, and then it becomes, is this person going to be loyal and send the referrals down the street, or do they come to you? So loyalty is a huge part of office politics, and especially when it comes to vendor relationships. We see some strange relationships there because, you know, I want to do business with you. I also have a friendly relationship with you, but you're not giving me the prices that he is doing, and so forth. So all that falls under politics. So when I talk about office politics, specifically for us as directors, leaders within the industry, how are you navigating that? How are you making sure that your voice gets heard, your initiative? Earlier on in the leadership session, we were talking about engagement, staff retention, right? I want retention bonuses for my staff, but that's not where the organization is going. So navigating that, how do I get them to buy in? That is all about office politics. And unfortunately, a lot of times is that we don't talk about this because it's considered a taboo subject. When I went into Guam, it was just like thrown into the political situation of the environment of the organization and then of the island. Nobody's saying, well, how do you navigate this? Because you feel like you're on one side or the other. Am I on hospital leadership side? Am I on the local politician side? Am I on my staff side? And now it creates this disconnect with the relationship. And a lot of us, sometimes, most of the time, we go with the flow and we get taken advantage of, right? Some of us, hopefully, you've never experienced that, but let's say, you know, you have somebody who steps in to help support you, and then they get credit for the project. They get the promotion. You know, you're the voice in the background helping support, and you get passed over for a promotion. Or it's time for downsizing, and nobody was there to support you. So you end up being the one to say, hey, I'm sorry, Nicole, we enjoyed having your service. So when you have these relationships, it certainly helps strengthen your voice and prevent issues like that, prevent issues of taking advantage of, people using you, being passed up for promotions, and just not being able to navigate it. It's hard to navigate life on your own, much more for when you're dealing with these politics. Also, earlier on, we heard today in the leadership where I think it was Greg who was talking about he came in and he had ransomware to deal with. And now it became his thing to fix. And he used the word, I had to bully my way through there to just take over this project. And that sometimes we have to disagree. We have to fight with colleagues to get things done. I'm always fighting with, you know, other departments in terms of who gets the money, always fighting with nursing. Why does nursing get the retention bonuses, or they get the surge program, radiology doesn't get it? So we end up having a lot of these disagreements and fighting. And when I experienced that, especially from Guam, recognizing, hold on, instead of fighting and disagreeing, how can we all play in the same sandbox? And how do we get out of the sand and play in the sandbox together? How do we all support each other's initiative, talking the same talk? And unfortunately, sometimes the disagreements, the relationships, you know, just the personalities, as you spoke about, that can cause us to leave the organization. If you don't have a good relationship with your boss, or you don't have a good relationship with the people that you're working with because you feel like you're fighting everything. You're trying to get this initiative through. You're trying to get a new program set up. You're trying to get you know, a new vendor into the organization, and everything becomes a fight. Everything becomes stressful. So unfortunately, sometimes we feel like we have no choice but to leave the job. Whoa, what happened there? Oh my goodness. Okay, let's go way back. Sorry about that. Yeah, okay, it's way too sensitive. Okay. Oh boy. Okay, well, we will go with that. Thank you for that. All right, so unfortunately too, you know, for your employees. So you're not only here for you to understand how to navigate politics, but also recognizing what your employees may be experiencing. There's already strained relationships between offices, referring offices, physicians, referring physicians, people talking on the phone, yelling, you know, why didn't I get this order done appropriately? So all of that is indirectly office politics. And if we don't deal with it, it is going to fester. It is going to fester. It's going to cause people to suffer. They're going to be miserable in their jobs. You can be miserable. And if you have not experienced office politics in its true intent, count yourself lucky, because there are so many jobs out there that people are just like, you know, they get anxiety. They don't want to go in. I got to deal with Elena today, right? And that's kind of the feelings that they're getting, okay? That's it. and this is how people think and they feel, and it creates that anxiety, and it causes contempt between departments. It causes contempt between different referring offices, a billing department, revenue cycle, and of course, so the cycle goes. So what I want to emphasize too is that sometimes we get so focused on our teams. I only, you know, I'm over radiology. Some people have cardiology and other departments. But when you get too focused on your teams, not recognizing, I need to build relationships with IT, I need to build relationships with marketing or supply chain, and making sure that I start now. Because again, when it's time to get something done, when there's a new initiative, how are you going to form those relationships? And at the end of the day, dealing with these personalities, dealing with the power struggle becomes emotionally exhausting. Very, very exhausting for any leader to go through. And it may cause you to do bad things. It may cause you to blow up in front of people. It may cause you to slam your fist in a meeting. You get heated, and it causes some bad, well, some inadvertently bad behavior, because you get so passionate. If there's somebody who's really rejecting your idea, then, you know, in a meeting, you can actually come off pretty strong because you feel so against that policy or against that new initiative that it may cause you to display some bad behavior in front of your peers. And like I was talking about, these bad relationships then forces you to be ostracized. Nobody wants to talk to Elena, like I said, right? Or poor Elena now is manipulated. She feels that, you know, in order for her to have these relationships, that, you know what, if Josh wants to call the shots this way, she's now manipulated, again, knowingly or unknowingly, to get things done. Backstabbing. If you've ever experienced that, fortunately, as of now, I have not experienced any backstabbing, but that is not also a good feeling, right? I have heard peers that, gosh, you know what? I can't believe that they did this to me. I can't believe that I helped that person and they went and they stabbed me behind my back. And, you know, so these things actually, people start pushing buttons. Gaslighting, you know, where you're really being inflammable, right? So you have, it goes hand in hand with manipulating. People do something and they're like, oh no, I didn't do anything like that. That is not what I meant to do, you know, you interpreted that wrong. And so you have gaslighting, sandbagging, again, people pushing each other forcefully to do things. Hiding from this wouldn't get us too far. And, you know, usually we see, especially those hiding from it, are usually younger females, where they don't feel like they have, and especially from a cultural standpoint, where they don't feel like they can stand up. And I can tell you, once upon a time, I was very, very shy. And who you see today, I would rather be in the back corner. I'll come to these conferences, just observe everybody. And I was one of those two that, no, I'm not going to be participating in any of that. I don't need to form relationships with people, like close relationships. I'm going to come in, do a really good job as a leader, and go my way. And then recognizing, I think Guam really did it for me, is where I was really thrown into it. But I was military, always dealing with politics there, right? Between senior leaders, different different departments in the hospital. Then when I went into private practice, it was the same thing. You know, it's like this referring provider, they want to send to inland imaging, or they want to send to TRA, and how do we get people on our side? And, you know, this dichotomy of like, what do you do, balancing and all of that, but thinking, hey, you know what, I'm still going to do my thing, but recognizing that you can't just hide from it. You cannot just go in to do your work. You cannot just focus on your team. You need to play the politics, whether or not you recognize it, but we are dealing with politics every day. So my intent here today is to help you navigate this. For the most part, whether you're facing it now or in the future, to help reduce that intimidation. Intimidation meaning that I don't feel like I can go to the director of, you know, whichever department and have a good conversation, or if I go to cardiology and I talk about a partnership with IR, that I may never get my way, you know, thinking my way. They may never be collaborative with me. And depending on that personality, they may intimidate one of us, right? Depending on who it is. So, helps us better interact with our staff, and then helps us recognize which battles do we fight. And that's the key thing. Right.
Because you cannot be all the time. So you're going to pick something that really important to you. So I really understand that.
So let's say you pick a battle that's very important to you and you're really butting heads. What would you do? Oh.
Well, before that, I really have a good relationship with everybody. So when I pick a battle, I'm trying to win. If I'm losing, I'm going to pick on them. Because they might hurt both our fit for both relationships in the future.
Right. So you have to do that legwork first, and then recognizing. But again, when you have something that is really important to you on the table. So right now it is employee satisfaction, employee retention. And if you are not able to get your senior leadership buy-in or your other department buy-in, and that's really important, how do you truly determine, am I going to pick this battle? Am I going to forge this battle or not? It becomes difficult. Why? Because if I recognize that it's a losing battle, but on the other hand, if I don't fight it, my team is not going to get a retention bonus. My team is not going to get something. When do I decide, you know what, this is not going to be worth it? It is hard. It is a hard position to be in. Any comments on that? How do you determine which battles that you would fight?
I wish I knew the answer to that. I've gone through a lot of last year. I've been with him for about 3 years, and I've been with a lot of initiatives. I've lost some. We have about 600 employees and 110 regional position only.
Yeah, so, and that's the key thing there. You come in all gung-ho, ready to conquer the world at your imaging, right? You got your KPIs, you got all of these cool initiatives. You know what it is to improve customer satisfaction, but then you face
The wall.
correct.
The wall.
Yeah, so how do you determine, yes, do I continue chipping away at that wall? Do I come in like a bulldozer? How do you determine which battles do you fight?
For me, it's around employees. If it's a benefit to the employee, then I 100%. So I win the battle.
Yeah, and that's interesting you say that, because it really comes down to what you as a leader is passionate about.
What is your priority? Is it patient care? Is it employee satisfaction?
Correct.
Is it culture? Is it communication across departments, which is culture?
But then when you're faced with the operational side and you know that your organization wants to have you see a healthy bottom line, then it becomes 1 foot looking after employees, 1 foot looking after patients, and then 1 foot looking after the profits of the business. Because especially in today's world, what do we hear from frontline employees? Oh, gone are the days of healthcare, right? Everything is about the bottom line. And they do feel like nobody's advocating for them anymore, or employees also feel like nobody's advocating for the patients because all we're considered is making sure that equipment is always, full, making sure that there's turnover with our patients, that is. So sometimes, especially, employees feel like nobody's advocating for them. But you bring up a good point that yes, it is what your priorities are. If your priorities are to help make it a better environment for your patients or for your staff, that's definitely, you're going to fight that battle till the end. Now, one thing I've observed with that is that sometimes we may be fighting these battles for our employees and we get an initiative shut down. But I cannot come back to my employees, my staff, and say senior leadership didn't agree with that. And now I am caught in the middle because I have really, yes, I have fought really hard, but they don't know how hard you're fighting. And then, they're not seeing that, so they feel some disappointment. How would you manage that? With your team especially, I think you're in a different position because you get to call the shots. But if you have a manager or a supervisor who's saying, Josh, we really need to do this, and you shut that down, how does that make that person feel in front of the team?
You can't have that continuity if you're putting that person in a managerial position. You have to have that back to execute what you ask them to do. And I mean,
This isn't what you've asked them to do, it's what they're asking you to do.
right.
Yes.
Right. But again, I mean, I think it's creating a realistic expectation across all departments to say, hey, this is the common goal, how the front end gets there versus the back end might be night to day. But you have to make sure you're being transparent across all platforms.
And that is the key thing. So that's where sometimes I see the disconnect is like, hey, if the organization isn't employee focused right now, maybe their focus is somewhere else. So me coming to push an initiative with retention bonuses and all of these things will not align with that focus. If the focus right now is just to survive, then I need to look at expenses. And that's how I found sometimes to not be coloring my hair as often and save my gray hair is recognizing what is it that is important, not just to me, but to my organization. What are the strategic goals of the organization? What is their focus this year? Yes, and a lot of exactly.
Align them in a way I'm already
Correct. Yes, and indeed, so and it's no different with what is the organizational goals for expansion. Here I am, want to expand maybe my interventional, and then I keep getting no, hey, we don't have the money or whatever. But if I recognize that, gosh, they're not into expansion this year, we're just trying to maintain core services, that is going to save us some grief, right? You're not going to be fighting with the CFO, you're not going to be fighting with somebody to get this initiative through. So yeah, so it really helps us, just navigate which battles we're going to choose, and really recognizing what is it that I want to do versus what is it the organization wants to do. Sometimes people tell me that they feel like puppets. Well, why did they bring me in here, right? I came in with the vision of improving. I have all of this experience, but at the end of the day, I just have to execute what they want. And I keep reminding when my colleagues, yes, exactly. But oh, the not my job. Yes. And oh, those are some inflammatory words there sometimes because what do you mean? Let's get the transcriptionist still, right? I need to record it this way. But exactly that, so how are you fighting that battle of digital transformation? How do you get them on your side?
Try to get feedback from them. What do we need to improve? Make that part of the initiative.
And that is the key thing about beating office politics is making it their ideas. Unfortunately, we can come with the same idea 10 times, but the minute is your idea now, that is going to help, right? Always the case.
And that ends up putting out a fire before it becomes a huge.
And that's why I say you're in a different position, especially I think in the outpatient world, smaller outpatient environments, it's easier to navigate. But once you come into a larger organization, what you're seeing is 100% true. But when people are sitting in the ivory tower and they're just watching the fishbowl from outside, they don't understand how the fishes, the frontline employees, they don't understand how boiling hot that water is, right? They're just watching the team and okay, they're swimming along, but until you're in the front line, until you're recognizing that, you know what, not all decisions get made up here. And that's a big source of contention. And I'm seeing it more and more, especially with COVID. And, you know, again, the traveler situation, retention bonuses, it just seems to create that bigger divide there where all the decisions, most of the decisions are coming from top down versus from the people who are in the front line here.
I have an organization that I recommend work really well for a long time is each member of the C-suite, one day a month, did work at least 6 hours in a day in the department.
Yeah.
Whether, I mean, I can't tell you how many times I saw, we finally got to do it and they loved it. CEO went and worked facility maintenance, empty trash cans all over the hospital. I had one, we had a CFO who was a transporter. And that's what they did, they transported all over the hospital. It was hard to get them to do it. But once I got the initiative going and they were able to go, okay, so chief of nursing, she was working in admin, she helped triage patients in the ER, she technated on the floor here and there. But once we got them to do it, not just on the day shift, but on the night shift.
Yes.
At least in 6 months, 2 of the 6 had to be on off shift. We didn't care what 6 hours they did, it had to be either off shift, evening or weekend. And we got them, which was great when I was running weekends back in the day. But it was.
They need to be in the
It all
fishbowl.
of a sudden really changed the perspective of, they have no idea what we do every
Yes.
day. Well, of course this is gonna work because this is just, because in a perfect world that would work. But they have no concept of that's working.
Yes, and
I'm from the C-suite. I go to each of my sites every place and just do a small group roundtable, listen to what are the frustrations and what can I do as a leader, and listen to like Josh, listen to their ideas.
There's a difference though, because, yeah, and I had them working it and it took me about, for my dissertation, it took me a good year of that work to talk them into doing it. But once they started doing it for me, because I had built up a little capital to get them to well with others, it wasn't, because they used to come and do, go and do monthly roundtable lunches in departments all the time, but it wasn't the same. I had to walk in the floor for 6 hours.
right.
And mopping and sweeping and emptying the trash cans and what they were able to just observe. Plus, it made them real people. They weren't
Yes.
C-suite. They were going to help, and because you're going to be asked to help patients too. Where is this? How do I find out? Made all the difference in signage. Just directional signage in the facility was changed within 6 weeks because they saw how many lost people there were in the department.
Yes, and then the thing with that is the consistency behind it, right? Because what we observed was 1 or 2 attempts. People are like, oh, that's not so bad. You know, you guys are doing okay. But that consistency and making sure if it's every Friday that you're seeing it, not just this one time, oh yeah, you know, pushing patients is no big deal. And we've actually had comments like that come out from senior leaders and really inflaming the frontline staff. Well, what do you mean? You're just here for 1 day, as opposed to that consistency there. All right, so let's continue here. So the politics to get ahead. And like I was saying, some of us feel like, oh, we don't need to understand how to navigate politics. But really, the research has shown that yes, 28% of us said that it's very necessary to understand how to navigate politics to get ahead, whether that's getting ahead in your career, getting ahead in business, getting ahead of those referrals. It is part of our everyday. 48% says that maybe somewhat necessary to get ahead, and only 14% says not at all. And yes, I was once in that category there, but recognizing just for me to get any type of momentum with initiatives, I need to know how to play the politics. Yeah, you still think that's a big number?
10%.
Yeah.
No, think about it. How many texts do you have? How many frontline people and attendees do that? Their whole thought process is, I go to work, I go take care of my patients, and I go home.
A lot of them.
Every single one of those, right?
Yes.
If they are management or leadership track, whether they are on the school board, whether they're in it, whether they are goaling in that direction in their career, that's a different person. That's the 48%. But you're.
So you bring up a good point. I think that, people who really understand the importance of navigating politics is once you hit a leadership position, at least from manager above, where you recognize, gosh, I need people on my side. I need people to support this initiative. I need people to allow me to purchase the equipment or to go with this vendor. So when you get into those decision making, but yeah, at the front line, you're not going to see too much because they're just showing up to do their job, right? Yep, that's it. So why do you need to know this? Because as we said, to get ahead. And like I was saying, usually we see, especially with females, feeling like they need to kind of sit in the background. They don't have that voice. They're not having that support. And they complain the most that they're being passed up for opportunities because other people are louder than them, or you have the male counterparts who are really pushing and standing up for themselves and speaking up loud, and pretty much a squeaky wheel, right? You get that attention. So tell me what you think about this. Who determines what you get to do? Let's start with you, Nicole. What do you mean?
Well, who you know is definitely important for sure. I know Josh. I know Josh personally. I've known him for quite a few years now. I think that if there was an opportunity to collaborate, we could do that. But that's not come from who I know, but it's what I know. It's my education, it's my background, it's all the initials behind my name that can support me. They guide me what I need to do. You want to get in, might open the door to start the conversation.
Correct.
Background, who I am, my knowledge set.
It's the background, yes, if you go in an apolitical environment, right? So now if you go into somewhere where people are very hierarchical, they're going to look, if you and I have that relationship, then if I were your senior leader, I may be now allowing you more opportunity within your role, regardless of your background. And this is where we hear people, well, how did they get that job, right? You have no credentials. Tell me more.
But I had the program throughout and we extended in 3 more states. I had 2 assistant directors. So they did all job and they focused only on getting in touch with new affiliates, signed agreement. And since my chief academic officer and civil law, they knew my job, they knew my ability to be able to contact with people and speak up and not to be afraid or sit in the corner. Like, oh my God, because the first question when they start talking to people, what are you talking about? I've been doing it for 20 years, every time. So it can break up anybody. Not me. So, yeah, I'm here. So anyway, since I knew knew me, it determined what I could do. And I was able, since I had the experience of what I did as a MRI program director, I just branched out and started doing something else, like executive director of clinical development. So I knew a person who knew me and believed in me and let me do it.
Exactly, and that's what I was saying, Nicole. So even though she had the background without knowing that person to allow that opportunity, because I may have all of the initials, but if I don't have the right people who are saying, oh yeah, Nicole, how about you start looking, how about we train you in supply chain, or how about you lead this particular project, you're not going to have that if a lot of times it is who you know allows you to expand your role more than your background. You were agreeing with that earlier?
Because, so I did a right? So he said, John, you know, hey, all this, whatever conference, you know, you figure attend whatever per year. Because we're doing the medical device company, Houston, right? So if I will not, I mean, if I don't know him for the last 60 years working for him, he can say, he might hire another person, go and do the thing, rather than, oh,
Correct.
John, I trust you, whatever, you attend, you know, learn as much as you can, you know, it's all about who you know.
Yes, and especially when it comes to your senior leaders and around you, if they're not advocating for you, say yes, go ahead and go to these conferences, or hey, you know what, I think you would be a really good addition to spearheading this new program, and you're going to be stunted. So again, we're coming back to building that relationship as well. And then, of course, it's the same thing there. What you get to do determines what you get to know. If now you're able to expand into different conferences or different projects, then it expands your repertoire, your expertise as well. All right, so have you experienced a decision that was definitely biased, either to you or to somebody, where you saw somebody, oh yeah, they got that position only because they knew that person, or because they were there 10 years, or you've experienced people talking about behind your back, or maybe, putting you under the bus for various reasons, whether or not it was intentional. So most times, you snicker there.
My whole department left 4 years ago. I was the only one in my team, I had a small team, 5 people, I was in command. Until that was a little mistake. And then they go, and I put in for the manager's office, and they got director, call me in his office. I have 3 candidates, you're my 3rd candidate.
Woo!
Okay, there goes that. Well, his first candidate didn't take the job. He toyed around, lost the job opportunity. The second candidate wasn't what he thought it was. And so then he started with me, and he goes, well, maybe you can meet the man interim until we get someone that is the correct fit. I'm like, okay, fine. I'm still just doing my job. And 6 months later, he goes, okay, you are the right fit. I'm like, yeah, I knew that.
That's why I applied.
But then he got fired. So then but his boss already knew that I was right. Still.
Yeah.
But if you how does that make you feel?
Now you're 3rd, right? Oh, by the way, yeah, you're still good for me, Yeah. Or you lose that trust with that person too. Only now, because you become desperate, you have nobody, then you're coming back to me, right?
Well, trust me, I've had to deal with that because of that situation. I'm being the one I felt as my leadership growth. I've only been man for 3 years. I felt like that's something that has been, oh, he was the manager because he stayed. Yeah, he stayed. And I'm like, no, I'm the manager because I'm working.
Yes,
And
exactly.
my boss said, they brought in a director. 9 months after my senior leadership changed. And so they brought in a gentleman, my director, who was a position that did not exist. And they go, oh, he's going to run this department. Okay.
Wow.
What is that seeing that director has empowered me? That's why I'm here. So he goes, go to that conference, when you go to the conference. But I've had a lot of, because of the experience, even though I was the right person, I had to overcome so much of it. As I said, my boss now loves me, and so that's why I'm here. My organization, 3,000 people, but my team is only, my boss only has a 5-man team, I mean, 8-man team. So we're a small team.
You guys also tell everybody about the story you told me about coming to the training this time.
Tell us.
Oh, just told me them? Yeah. You told me that.
My wife wanted to.
That's really cool.
My boss literally was like, because of this is a radiology based thing, but hey, you need to go and grow and just mature. So my weakest part, and my wife also is a wine drinker. So that's how I really got.
Yes. So all of these things is all again part of the politics about it, right? Rumors about you. Now, for those of you who earlier on you heard me say, now I'm on the blacklist. My organization is on the blacklist because of, letting go some travelers, and then you have these rumors flying, oh, what kind of person are you? But that's one aspect. And you have what he was just saying. What if he had gotten that position and people didn't realize that he was third in line? There are going to be rumors behind something that you're doing, or your promotion, especially if that is not communicated appropriately. People are going to have rumors about that. Not crediting your work. You're part of a big project, and then somebody else, again, because they're more outspoken than you, it seems like it was all their idea, they get the credit, and then you get nothing. And unfortunately, because again, there's some bias there. If everything is about John, then John is in everybody's mind, and wow, he's doing such a good job, and he ends up getting the promotion versus myself or somebody else. This is a big one. People often say, bring your ideas, bring your authentic self. But once we start disagreeing with people around us, our senior leaders or even our lateral peers, disagreeing is going to cause trouble. We're going to get into those fights. Now I'm seeing like I'm the person who's never wanting to support something. And it's like, well, you're saying, hey, let's come and have a discussion. But yes. So now if I am opposing you, then you're going to think, oh yeah, that Nicole, she's always opposing everything, right? Nothing can please her. And unfortunately, then it goes back to the rumors. Oh, don't get in a discussion with Nicole. And so you go into this vicious cycle. And this one here, disagreeing, and this is where, again, where people tell me they feel like puppets. Because if I now go and say, hey, Josh, this is how I feel, this is what I think about this initiative, they're just going to feel like you're hindering it, you're not supporting them, and we go up into the rumors here. Yeah, okay, she's not a supporter of us. And like I said, sometimes we get passed up for promotions, and it really hurts us, right? We're all emotional beings, and it significantly hurts us. So now let me ask you this question. Who are you when it comes to managing politics? What is your approach? Are you the purist, the street fighter? Which one are you? I have two more examples here. You dislike it and you just want to get the job at hand. This is who I was many years ago. I want to come in, do what I need to do. I don't want any part of it. You guys do your thing. Just tell me what to do. So, oh, so then do you think that sometimes you feel like the street fighter a bit, right? When it comes to those raw initiatives, especially for supporting our staff, and those initiatives are your students. Those initiatives are quite different from where the organization wants to go. Sometimes we may need to throw somebody under the bus to get our initiative through, or we may need to call out their initiative. Well, if we go this way, this is what's going to happen. See that a lot, especially with nursing, right? Between nursing and ancillary services. Uh-huh. Oh, here. Oh, Carol, I'm now seeing your comments here. So let's see. Figure out what's in it for them. They don't care how it helps you. They need to understand how it helps them. True for frontline administrators, all of us. So if it's only about me, then I need to stand down. That's kind of what we were talking about, you know, what is it, what is the agenda for us? So figuring out what is in it for them, and they don't care, let's see. They don't care how it helps you. They need to understand how it helps them. And Carol, you are exactly right when we start talking about making it their idea, right? Once it's their idea, you're going to get easy way through for that. So here's some other ways that people navigate politics. They're the team player, right? You know, we sing Kumbaya together, like John is saying, and we know that if we work together, we're going to get it through. Some days I may have to push your initiative through. Some days I may have to push your initiative through and stay back. And some days I'm going to see people around me getting promoted, getting opportunities. And I may just have to grit my teeth and hope that, you know, all the best for them. So, and then the maneuverer here. Do you believe in getting ahead by playing this game of politics in a way that is skillful and unobtrusive to those who only things take at face value? And I think this is where I find myself right now, you know, kind of being fluid and understanding, well, who are my allies? Who are the ones that I have to massage their ego? Who are the ones that I really need to you know, build that relationship with? So when it's time for me to strike, I already have a relationship and reverse psychology and everything on you, right? Now you know my tactics.
Being observant enough
Oh, yes.
to know who you need to be politically at the time, when you need to be politically beta,
Yes.
and when you need to go in and be politically alpha.
Yes.
And I think that's really the art of knowing when you need to be you. Doesn't mean that you don't always do it right. You go in like a bull in a china shop and you strap in and get done.
Yeah.
And then there's that balance of, do I care whether you care?
Yes. And especially when you take that bull in a china shop approach, the fallout from that, right? Exactly. Yes.
Do I care what your opinion is when I'm in the end? I think it was best for 25 patients.
Yes. Agree.
Talk to me about it later.
Yes.
But in the moment, no.
And like I was saying, you know, sometimes with people not feeling like they have that strength or that courage to go do that, right? If I go do that, and maybe I'm going to be passed up for that promotion.
You got to be willing to know walking in that I'm going to accept that.
Correct. Yes, and then what is the impact on you as a person, your career, your future with the organization as well? Well, here, let's dispel some myths real quick here. What are some myths regarding navigating or beating politics? You're bad if you play the politics, right? Okay, because we're now getting our hands dirty, you're considered to be a bad person. You're a bad leader if you're trying to navigate this politics, but that's not true.
Pushing your bias, which I do with every relationship, that's just relationship. Pushing your trying to understand someone's bias and you influence the bias all of it.
Right. But now if you are now siding with a team, so let's say again, let's talk about, you know, engagement is a big one, right? Retention. So now if you happen to support leadership and you're not supporting your staff, now you're considered bad because you're trying to play the politics of keeping your senior leaders happy. Or if you are now not supporting an IT initiative and you go and you support something counter to that, people may now think, well, oh yeah, you know what?
We had something happen 8 months ago. Senior leadership, executive leadership,
Mm-hmm.
did something, and the leadership team, we found out that they needed to go there. We were told we gotta do it. So the next day, it came through, you doing the company role. And I quit.
Now, you definitely, but if you're there 1 year compared to how many years, unfortunately, your length of time with that team, yes,
Relationship you build, you have that door, you're willing to close that door before he comes in. I can say what he wants to say,
yes,
but you walk out.
correct.
Even if you listen to the idea, I think that helps. Even if you don't agree with it, you're not gonna execute it, at least you take the time. I think that's super important, because then at least somebody feels that they were heard.
Yeah.
And that perception is positive.
Always, just giving people the opportunity to blow off the steam. Hey, once it leaves this room, that's it. You go back out there and you be the team player again. But I think a lot of times, especially when we find ourselves with a decision where we're supporting one side or the other, typically when we're supporting a business decision versus a patient care decision or a team decision, then it becomes like, oh, you become one of them now, right? It's all about business versus patient care. It's all about the dollars versus the students, So those types of things, when you find yourself kind of caught in between there, is when people feel like you think they're bad. So let's see, Carol says an individual's motivation behind how they engage in the organizational politics is not insignificant. If motivated for the organizational good, great. If motivated for personal gain, questionable. How do you know when somebody is motivated by personal gain? When they're just trying to climb that ladder, right? They're trying to rub all the right shoulders. So now I get to go into the C-suite, or I get to go and be CFO or something. Can you observe when somebody has their own agenda? What are some of the telltale signs? They come down. True.
Yeah, no, I'm just saying, let's say you have a conversation with Shannon. Shannon at face value, oh yeah, everything's fine, and then Shannon turns around and every other person in the department,
Yes.
and then tear up. Those five are important.
I mean, some of you, so what does it tell you? I'm only here for this amount of time because this is my next job. I'm punching the clock. I'm like, wow, that's great. You tell us because I'm not interested.
Yes.
Or look at the grants that they post.
Oh, yes. But yeah, especially when people start, John, I'm always surprised that people would actually say that. I'm just
So why
here.
don't people work more honest in a different way than that? Walking into a room and going, my goal is to learn everything I can learn within now and the next 5 years so that I can have your job.
And that's an amazing thing to say.
Because I did that. I've actually done that twice.
And I love that. But to say, I'm just here to, check the box, I'm like, if this is your first time coming out of the tech role or
Yes.
a non-leadership role, that's amazing. You know what I mean? But there is, I love that. I'm gonna start giving you stuff to help me.
And that's exactly why I did it, because I wanted to be able to Danny, I wanted off.
But a person like that is coming more so, hey, I'm just here. They're not coming from a place of genuine care and personal growth. That is really just all for them.
But then what happens in 5 years? It's get a job and two people get interviewed from outside.
Yeah.
That's the other one.
Yes, and especially when Eric has mentioned to his senior leaders, hey, what can I do so I can grow or I can be in your role? And yes, because they knew that person from another entity, that person worked with them before, or they had one more credential behind their name, and all of a sudden, Eric now goes to the bottom of it.
For 3-4 years, and she's being calculus certification. And when she's grade, brought her first tool.
Do you guys do tuition reimbursement?
Yeah, so I see her better, which wasn't really difficult for her. And as I entered her with that, I said, how about you? I want to be a director in 5 years. She's working towards that, and I told her, I'll do everything I can.
There's some great books that you could just like, don't cost much, that you could like get you call him for leadership, drive that relationship and culture and being and
She's working through the hospital, she's getting to know the nurses and everything else, communicating with them, a lot of phone calls and stuff like that. And her director now, Mike, he's doing like, she's doing a great job. But you see that, it's a point, I don't think that's playing politics, that's somebody who is driven.
It is, but at the end of the day, John, it's still, if you don't play that, if she does not build those relationships, right, she's not going to have people on her side. And especially if there's a big age difference as well, you know, all of those things drive. Yes. So Carol was actually saying, you know, when I asked the question, how do you recognize somebody there for their personal agenda? And she makes a good point here. They frequently relate initiatives to their individual incentives, right? So yeah, if I don't accomplish this incentive, I am not going to get my 3%, 10% bonus, you know, performance bonus. So yes, indeed, we will see people who are really pushing that turnaround time goal, right? Because if we don't accomplish it, then my bonus, my whatever it is that my job is attached to, is definitely not going to come to fruition. Okay, myth number 2, we don't need to pay attention. And we already dispelled that yes, you do need to pay attention to observing how decisions are made, observing the power structure, observing the people who have no leadership title, but they seem to have a huge influence, right? Your voice. I saw a lot of that in Guam. People, especially by their last name, who they knew, definitely had a lot of power versus the people actually in those roles. So if you're affiliated with a certain family, you tend to have a stronger voice and your initiatives to push through. I can be successful without politics. Now, John just kind of said, hey, you know, that's not politics, but it is. It's a subtle form of politics. So we all have to know how to deal with politics to go through our jobs, especially to survive the organization these days, and especially when we're seeing people getting hired with bigger incentives, with higher salary compared to the people who were there. So Eric, maybe that person, you know, a new person coming in may have been offered a higher salary just because they're coming new, they want to entice them, versus Eric has been there really giving out everything, and then he gets, you know, a $5,000 increase, a $10,000 increase compared to what they're getting. Oops. Myth 4, I work from home, so it is unaffected. This is so untrue. Regardless if you're in the space at work or remotely, everybody, again, is impacted by politics in one situation or not. From who always gets to talk on the Zoom meeting, who always gets the final say, who always gets their initiative heard or their decision, or, you know, really pushing their agenda. That's even more so in the online workspace, because we can't control, everybody's seeing each other's eyes there, but I may put up my hand using the emoji icon, and then here's this person always unmuted, talking every time, right? So they're going to be, again, the one with the loudest voice, really pushing their agenda. And then, like I was saying before, you don't need to be considered dirty because you're participating in politics. It's unfortunately, you know, I felt I learned the hard way. I thought that, yeah, you know, navigating those relationships, being on one side or the other meant that I was playing sides, but it was really about how the art of navigating it, as you were saying there. Myth number 5, politicians are born and not made. All of us are a politician in some sort. So yes, it doesn't mean because I could be the charmer and talk my way through. Every one of us is a politician in some sort. You may be the backseat politician, you may be, you know, the aggressive friend, you may be the street fighter, you are the, you know, you are a politician in some sort. And Josh, especially with you and getting your business up to par, you're going to be a big politician out there, trying to get those referrals, trying to maintain those relationships with vendors, all sorts of things that you're going to be doing, navigating those relationships. So at the end of the day, office politics is about what? It is about the complex relationships that are being formed. It is about power. It is about decision making. It's about influence. You know, the book is what? How to win and influence people. So now you need to work on how you're going to influence people to get you that $100,000 to buy the DEXA machine, to get you, you know, the retention bonuses, to get you that $10,000 sign-on bonus for the rad tech. All of those things, how you navigate all of that is all about politics. And there are certainly different levels. I think Nicole was alluding to this, but there are so many different levels. Oh, goodness. My mouse, where did the mouse go? There we go. There's definitely many different levels. Some organization has it very minor, but especially when you go into the GS system, when you go into traditional organizations, you're going to have a lot of politics there. You're navigating, we call it the red tape, right? So all of that, I find, you know, I find usually in outpatient practice, you're not going to see it as much as when you go into multiple hierarchical bureaucratic organization, especially the GS system, the government. So to sum it up, politics is about power and relationships, right? Who has the power? Is it the COO? Is it the CEO? Or is it your secretary? Or is it, you know, your frontline employee? They have power sometimes that you don't have. Why? Because this group could influence how people think and act at work and what they're going to come back and counter with the COO with, right? So you all here, you're going to come up and say, okay, yeah, we're going to do a strike. We're going to do a walkout. We're going to demand money. And now the COO, he is now powerless compared to you all. So we have to, again, looking at the observations, observing the people who have influence. Is John in the back there instigating conversation and stirring up something there? He has power, right? The two Johns there, actually, right? So, so when you look at people and you recognize who in your team are those especially stirring up the negative, who in your team are the champions, right? Who are there to support your vision as a leader, support your engagement plan, your communication. So I ask you the question again, do you have the power? Who in your department right now?
It's interesting you put secretary because most people know CEO has power, CEO has power.
Oh, no, if there's that.
She knows the access, she knows everything.
Yes, exactly. Yes, she has the power. Come on in. Uh-huh.
She actually can ask me to begin even though I'm late with 1 hour. She said, okay, you can go in there. That's why you need the room right away. So I think they love power sometimes.
No, and that's where we get misled. Oh, I got the title of systems director, you know, I got some power and authority here. But really, when it comes to influencing how the team is, influencing what my team is doing, whether they stay or go, whether they're going to support an engagement plan, support something, it is really, there is going to be some key people within that department who is going to have more power than me. It may not necessarily be in formal decision making, but influence over what people are thinking and what they're doing, right? Right. Right. Exactly.
You know, it's funny because people get caught up on titles sometimes. They forget that she's an extension of you or she's been there for so long, she knows how to do it properly. I think that's only your team. And that goes back to my reason why I mentioned that. She knew you can start yourself. cheaper than that over.
Correct. And then that creates a little bit of disconnect there, right? Because you have this person who's like all of a sudden they're there and they have this all of this knowledge, especially. So I want to pause for a second. Carol makes a good comment here. So we were talking about the remote space just now, and especially when you have different time zones, right? And you have people that are not making the earlier meetings, and again, or it's just us in this room, some people weren't here, and we start having conversation and only your ideas are being heard compared to these people. So you as leaders need to make sure that you are setting the tone, right? Allowing, when you listen to my inclusive talk as well, but you allow people the opportunity, or you call them, Eric, what else do you have to provide for this conversation? So in case he's feeling intimidated in the background, or what, I don't want to counter what John is just saying because now John is going to be mad at me. So if you, especially if people are having opposing opinions, providing an anonymous or a one-to-one follow-up about their opinions on different initiatives, because I may not feel comfortable speaking up and say, well, I don't agree with you guys, what you're saying, but because I want to save face with everybody, all of my colleagues, but I have no outlet to say that, right? I can go to my boss separately, but I still may not want to sound like I'm the one opposing it. So what are the avenues that you're providing for confidentiality?
Like as you said, don't want to feel comfortable enough to do that. Say, hey, I have a small team. They all know each other, but I have one employee who's very quiet. He's actually one of my top performers. He's very quiet. Say anything. So then I pull this out later and I go, hey, you must say, Matt, you did this.
Yes.
Like, do we do it?
Right, and then just being able to provide that safe space for them to say, hey, Eric, I am mad at you. How could you have said that, right? Without that team member feeling like they're going to get upset, like you're going to hold that as a grudge. Okay, you're on my bad list now, right? No promotion, no merit, and those things become very important to provide that space for your staff. All right, so we talked about if you have the power, you understand how you got your power. It could be by your appearance. It could be, I had once upon a time, somebody told me, this is when I was much younger too, Nicole, cut your hair and put on some glasses so that when you're going out there and we're trying to solicit work, that people will take you seriously as if you have the power. Like if you have the power. Yeah. Now, and it's interesting, at that time, I was really thinking that people, I was thinking that that person had my best interest at heart. But at the end of the day, it really wasn't, right? Somebody is saying, hey, Nicole, for people to take you seriously and know that you're my right-hand person, you got to put on some glasses and cut your hair.
You have to wear makeup. What I got years, I got, you need to wear makeup. And I went, you need me to sleep more than you want me to wear makeup. So yeah, there's a whole.
I did not, because I was like, I am knowledgeable based on who I am. It's not about my age. It's not about how I look. So unfortunately, but again, without really understanding how do I navigate the relationships, how do I get people, and I hear this especially from my biomed counterparts, the females are like, yeah, I go, let's say you and I are going to sell a piece of equipment and all the questions are directed to you. And she told me, she's like, no, I just bring a male counterpart because people are not going to think that I, as a female, know biomed stuff. It's crazy, but this is the reality of it, right? So how does she play the game now? She tells me she always brings a trophy, a guy who's going to be there, and she's just, he's just there just for being there, but she's still there answering all the questions, because at the end of the day, they're going to look at her as a female and say, what on earth do you know about equipment? All right, so let's start wrapping up here. So we talked about having relationships, right? Here's the relationship currency. So the relationship currency of who are your key players, right? Understanding Get to know these people, get to rub shoulders closely with them, know what motivates them, know what makes them tick, know how to speak their language, and understand who are the people that it needs to be their ideas and not your ideas. And unfortunately, that you have to play rubbing their ego and really making it all about them. Unfortunately, this is how it is, because when you stroke their ego, it's going to come back with some sort of return for you, whatever that return may look like, positive or negative. So the other parts of it too is looking at who are you dependent on. I know I'm dependent on my director of IT, supply chain, the director of nursing, scheduling. So when I know who I'm dependent on, I'm going to make sure that I support them in as many ways as possible, because I scratch your back, you scratch my back, right? But it's also heavily dependent on the culture. Like I said, coming into Guam and recognizing it's not about director this, director that, it's about the people with the key last names, right? The culture, the Camachos, those were big ones, and just recognizing what is the relationship dynamic locally in the hospital, and of course on the island as well. And we don't necessarily need to suck up on anybody, right? You're just building those relationships because you don't want to wait until now you have something going. Now it's time to deploy this initiative, and now I'm trying to build that relationship. And in your point, you have that 30-year span. How do we get, John just recently started his job. I mean, granted, some of your folks there, but how do we build these relationships? How do we go from 0 to 100 in less than 90 days or in less than a year? How do we create these relationships? Kindness. Kill them with kindness.
Honest, it's honest kindness. Kindness, not kindness, but
not kindness with an agenda.
Yeah, that was the word, sorry. True. Kindness.
Loyalty. Kindness and loyalty.
I came from a world where I did 26 years and I was in the military. And by the time I got 10 years, I was a senior infantry in the Army. So people came to me, whereas a new job, I had to turn around and learn something. And I got through it that I have to play politics, but just be my true self with kindness and speak. And also now anything I want to tell them, being a true self. Yeah, it's true.
There's a difference between being serving and being kind. I'm a good, kind person. I may be.
Until now, somebody takes advantage of that.
The aggressive part is knowing enough to know
when to come. Right.
But that doesn't stop me from being a good, kind person.
So tell me, what do you think of this? Carol says that people have something to lose. That when somebody has something to lose that's important to them, they won't necessarily remain loyal. You talk about loyalty, right? When they have something to lose, when it's now their career or their face or the credibility, or the spotlight on them, if they have something to lose, does loyalty go out the door? Yes.
That's not like across the board.
It depends on the person who has to make that decision, right?
People, they're ethical and they just honor, they code of honor.
Yes.
Regardless, if I'm leaving the company tomorrow, or I'm planning to retire from this company, I am loyal to you. So if I work for you, if I work with you, I'm loyal to your team.
Right.
So it's not like, oh, I'm leaving tomorrow, whatever.
Right, and depending on the person, by that loyalty can stand long past. I don't work for the radiology anymore. I have worked for ER in years. But I'm giving him a call on Wednesday morning because I heard something great that's really gonna help them. So I'm gonna call the CEO, even regardless of how that relationship may have ended or not. I'm sort of calling them, hey, I saw this great thing for you and the people there. Because I spent years with that care for organizations and patients.
And it comes back to,
But I think that's, that's who I am. When I left Whenever I have left the organization, I have said, you still have my number. Here it is again, my personal number. If you can't find a file, if you can't figure out how I built something or how I tracked something, call me. I have no problems
Yes.
taking you to lunch and helping walk through how reverse engineering will show you what I did to make.
But not everybody has the heart of Nicole, right? That is you. But we have seen, Eric, right, in our industry, there are not many nice people, right? These are all the nice people here.
I can be aware of it.
Right.
And know that I'm not going to be treated that way by everyone. But that doesn't mean that maybe still won't help me down the road today.
Agreed, agreed. But
Okay, I have to be good at that part. Do you need that? Yeah, you can ask people, do you need to be that? Yeah. Take care of.
so yeah, at the end of the day, you know, it really comes down to the personality, right? Who is that person and understanding them? Do they have an agenda? Are they going to throw me under the bus? Are they loyal? Are they going to have my back? Are they going to step up and say, no, I worked on that project with them? Are they going to advocate for me for that promotion? Are they going to support me expanding more into a different role? And these things become so critical. Again, you know, at the end of the day, politics is all about power, relationships, and influence, and understanding where do we all fit in. You may have some great influence or be, you know, how you carry about yourself, which may be different from how you do it. It may be the secretary that has more influence, and that she has to be your champion to get your agenda, to help people trust you, to help people understand who you are. You already have those relationships long term, so now it's to leverage those on a different scale and have people there really understanding who you are and what you're about. But we also need to be aware of who the politicians are in your department. Who are the bullies? Who's bullying their agenda? Who's bullying about, you know, how people think about senior leadership or how people think about the CEO? Who are the ones who are sharing information, gossiping really, and you know, they're sharing all sorts of information, which is bad information, but the staff around them is gullible and they're just taking it all in. What? They did that? That CEO got a raise and we haven't even gotten our 0.5%? Where are all these, you know, who are your people who is just going out there and lighting these little fires, right? Just because that's what they enjoy doing. Influence. Yes. And then who are the people that are there for social climbing, right? Who is there trying to get ahead? Theo, Eric, who's there trying to get ahead? Who are the thieves? Who is taking credit for everybody's work? Who's lobbying their own agenda, right? You have, yes, exactly. Who is lobbying, you know, cardiology again? They're trying to get their initiative through, but radiology is not necessarily doing that lobbying. Mr. and Mrs. Popular, right? Who are the ones who seem to get everybody smiling, you know, who's getting everybody to talk. So when you know these politicians, it's going to also help you understand how to navigate. When I know you're the one who's sharing information, I'm probably going to use Josh to help plant all my seeds because he spreads that news like wildfire, right? So now I use that reverse psychology. I'm planting all the good stuff and let him be the one to share it. And now when I know the thieves on there, then, oh, you want to be the one taking credibility. Would you like to spearhead this project, right? And oh, yes, definitely. To see exactly. And then especially when I'm not sure if somebody's really spreading rumors, exactly, when you have a doubt and you plant that seed. Yes. All right, so last one here. So of course, in all of these things, we recognize that the highest political activity here is the gossiping, spreading rumors, and gaining favor to flatter the boss, right? They want to be seen again for that promotion. They want to be always in the limelight, and of course, taking credit for other people's work is 7. I think that number is higher. People, yes, it's like, anyways. So yeah, I think they're definitely, they don't want to let people know that they're taking credit for the work. So, you know, when you navigate the politics, recognizing at some point you are all participating in it. Observe who are the people you need to be on their corner. Decide, am I going to fight this battle? Is it worth fighting? What is it the end result? Because as we talked about, I could be really fighting a battle for my team, and at the end of the day, if I lose, my team will not know that I fought that battle, because now it becomes, I cannot go and talk against my senior leadership. So what is this battle worth to you? Am I willing to lose all my hair like him? Or am I willing to continue coloring my hair, right? So you also need to have self-preservation. You got to consider you need to live another day to fight. And some things we may need to just ride the tsunami wave, regardless of how much it's, you know, pushing us all over the place. But, you know, the title of it was Navigate It or Beat It. I think if you really try to beat it, you could be successful, definitely. But the amount of stress, the amount of relationships that you could burn, radiology is a small world. We all talk. Somebody, you're applying for a job. Hey, do you know that Nicole? You know, I thought that she was working in your organization. Yes, exactly. So all of these things, we talked about an agenda. An agenda is not always a bad thing, because at the end of the day, it's about self-preservation, right? So navigating politics, you have to decide, what is the long-term outcome of this? How is this going to support my department? How is this going to support me? How is it going to support the organization? And I would tell you, based on my experience, you know, bringing your dissenting opinion if you don't agree with somebody or you don't agree with your senior leaders, and that becomes more of who your norm is. I like to call myself a non-traditionalist. I like to bring out the left field ideas, but at the end of the day, you know, you do have to support. At the end of the day, senior leaders or your colleagues are sometimes going to have the final say. Is that worth getting stressed about? So my biggest advice to you would be, again, understanding, you know, if I fight this battle, what is the outcome? Team, organization, and myself. Who are the relationships? The relationships are the key thing. Relationships, power of influence are the key when it comes to navigating politics. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate your attendance and participation.